that the majority of you do, but for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are an arm's length body of the Welsh Government. We are delivering the digital transformation strategy for Wales here in Wales, and we are very much focused on committing to improving public services within the public sector in Wales. Before we dive into it and start going over our phase, I'm going to hand over to our Senior Responsible Officer on this project, Edwina O'Hart, who is also our Head of Communications here at CDPS, and she's just going to give you a little bit of background into the foundations of this project before we get started. So, Ed, I will hand over to you if that's okay.
Lovely, diolch Poppy. Shmai pawb, Edwina Dwi, as Poppy said. I'm Edwina. Doesn't Senior Responsible Owner sound very grand? And I can tell you all of the work is done by the team, and the Senior Responsible Owner is basically responsible for making sure that the required outcomes are delivered, that the team risks are managed, and that it runs to budget. So that's been my role in the project. So why did we need to improve the website at CDPS? Well, our previous site was built and launched in 2020 when we were set up as an organisation. It was really the shop window to us, a new organisation, and we really had a limited number of services at that time. We've grown as an organisation since then, and our service offer has changed quite a lot since then as well. And while that's important, we are real advocates that the website shouldn't be designed around our needs, but around the needs of our users. So at the same time, our users were telling us that actually the website wasn't meeting their current needs. So for example, things like they couldn't book onto our courses and events, they couldn't find things easily. So to find out more, we decided to run a discovery. And what that means is we basically drill down into what our users were saying to look at what wasn't working for them and what wasn't meeting their current needs. As Poppy said, we formed a team. So that team was made up with relevant skills within CDPS, but following a procurement process, we also brought in Hoffy, a user-centred design agency based in Cardiff. And the really important thing to say about this is they've been embedded in the team from the start and have been working really closely with us from the very start. They've been involved in user research and building early prototypes of the site. So that's early things that we can test with our users. And we've been testing right throughout the whole process. The prototypes then, based on testing, have been iterated and have been tested again. So that's the kind of cycle in the process we've gone through. And what we've ended up with is a public beta site. So this is basically our minimum viable product, the thing that we want to start with, if you like. And we're still gathering feedback on this before we go live. And of course, then, you know, once we do go live, the process of gathering feedback and testing with users isn't going to stop. We'll iterate and we'll add new features based on what our users are telling us they need. The team work in the open, which is a principle of ours and it's one of our values in terms of transparency. And they've been running regular show and tells like this one today. And the amount of work that goes into it doesn't have to be underestimated. So just a big thank you from me to the team for all the work they've put into the show and tell today. But the show and tell really is an opportunity for you to provide feedback on what you're hearing, to add comments, to make suggestions. And we do this regularly at every part of the process. So it's not a big bang at the end and we're not launching something that you feel you haven't had any input or say into. And today's show and tell is very much about how we tested, how we listened, how we iterated, and to give you an insight into some of those iterations that were made as we went through the process. So I hope you enjoy, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions for the team at the end. Diolch yn fawr, Poppy, I'll hand back to you, please.
Yes, thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. So as Ed mentioned, throughout the phase, we did some usability testing with our users. As CDPS, we align our projects very closely with the Digital Service Standards for Wales. If you're not familiar with those, we will be dropping a link in the chat to those for you to take a look at in your own time. One of our digital service standards experience is all around understanding users and their needs, and that was very much sort of our approach here in conducting usability testing with users. We decided on usability testing as our way of collecting feedback from users and testing our product, as usability testing is quite an effective way of testing a new product. It allows flexibility, I think, and it allows for you to really focus on areas that you really want to find out more about and you want to focus on. You're also able to direct your users to aspects of the products that, you know, maybe you're having a bit of difficulty on, you're looking to find out a bit more on. So we felt that was the best approach for us. In saying that, we were very much aware, as the small team that we were at the time, that we had not brought in a user researcher into the team at that point in time. So we were very fortunate as CDPS to have a user-centered design team made up of some user researchers, and we were then able to collaborate and work closely with our user researchers to form the basis for our usability tests and to conduct and facilitate those with their expertise on our behalf. We utilised our user journeys and user stories that we had collated as part of our discovery to form the basis of our user testing. So we already had an idea of the types of users that we wanted to bring in to conduct tests for us. And primarily what we wanted to test was those user journeys that we'd captured as part of the discovery. We utilised a list of participants who we'd already consulted with as part of our discovery, but we also went out and did a bit of promotion to try and get additional participants to register with us for our research. Can be quite tricky at times, as some of you who've worked on projects where you've gone out to kind of recruit participants for research, you may be aware it can be quite tricky, but we were really fortunate in the participants that were willing to take the time out to take part in the user testing for us. And if any of you are on the call today, we thank you again for your time, very much appreciated. We decided to approach this testing virtually, so we held virtual calls with our test participants, and that was able to add an element of flexibility again, but was also very effective for the nature of the product that we were developing here, in that it is a website, because we were then able to have our test participants screen share their experience of the website in real time, and we were able to really observe their journey on the site. It also meant that as a team, we were all at times able to participate in those user testing sessions and develop an understanding of how user researchers work. So that was really insightful for us. Our user researcher utilised affinity mapping to capture the feedback that was received from the testing that we did with participants. And again, utilising a user researcher for this was just absolutely invaluable. When we did come to analyse the feedback that we received from testing, this mapping that our user researcher put together for us just really kept us on track in ensuring that we were prioritising the needs of the users. We were always referring back to our user journeys that we had mapped out. And it just really helped us to be able to focus and prioritise where the high priority areas were, and just be able to effectively build a plan really against timescales to work on the iterations as the feedback was coming in. With that in mind, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Oshan, who will introduce himself and discuss with you a little bit more about how we utilised the data that we collected from user testing and how we iterated and improved off the back of that feedback. So Oshan, I will hand over to you.
Diolch, Poppy. Oshan dwi. I'm Oshan. Dwi'n uwchddilinydd cynnwys yn CDPS. I'm a senior content designer here at CDPS. And as Poppy was mentioning, I'm going to be looking at a specific example what we've done to kind of use data to make decisions and iterate and improve things frequently. So that example is around communities of practice. Now, as you see from that screenshot, communities of practice is one of the options or one of the navigation options you will find in our courses and events. And during our testing, we found that this content has caused confusion for users, and we'll show you how that was confusing for users in a moment. But we also kind of wanted to show you that we don't really have a definite answer to this problem yet. And we also kind of want to show you what we're doing to use data and iterate that further in order for us to get to a definite answer in the future. So Poppy was mentioning there about the affinity mapping. Well, this is kind of a you'll see grouped issues here with communities of practice, and we'd called it communities of practice cause confusion, which is pretty much nail on the head. So what I think it showed was a lot of user kind of beliefs and feelings about community of practice in a broader sense as well, not just about what they were seeing on the website. So you'll see here, and I know the screenshot might be quite small, but some of the groups there are saying that the users might not know what communities of practice were, or that the term or the name isn't familiar to them. They wouldn't be sure where to find them on the website. They're not sure whether they fit into courses and events. Some users might not be aware of them, but know where they would be. And users also, we found, kind of were looking in different places. Some might think they were courses and events, but some in About Us and some in Guidance and Standards. So it really wasn't a conclusive. And one of the things I think came out of it as well was that the value for business for doing some user testing like this. So because quite often you're kind of testing the content, maybe the website navigation, and you're finding things out about those things, but you're also finding things about how your audience kind of perceive or understand the services or the products that you're offering. So some of the things that I was mentioning there about people not maybe being familiar with the concept of communities of practice, and it's one of the things that we're trying to sell to people, with benefits of the communities, but content alone cannot fix that kind of issue. So content can help, but not alone. So perhaps it does lead us to rethink a little bit as well about how we talk about communities, how we raise awareness about them, and these are kind of business decisions, not just kind of content and navigation issues as well. But that's not to absolve content. So we want to look at what can we do about that kind of navigation issue in the meantime. Even though we realised that there wasn't a single solution that would kind of meet the needs of those that we did the usability testing with, and therefore we assume our users at large. For example, some people thought, as I said, that it might be in different sections of the website. So we thought, really, we need to learn a bit more about this. So how are we doing this? Well, I will show you first example here of kind of we try to improve discoverability of the content based on where people said they might go to find that content. So basically, here's a screenshot of the About Us page where some people thought they might find communities of practice. We kind of wanted to make sure that users could find a link to the communities of practice there alongside some context, about what communities of practice might offer them. So a chance to connect with other people or network. And there's another example here as well from a call to action we added to the Guidance and Standards page. Now the call to action was something else. It was to join our mailing list, but we have that kind of on other pages as well, and we thought we can maybe use that to capture some of the people that try and find communities of practice on that page. What those two links do are direct people to the courses and events section, or to the communities of practice page in the courses and events section. So is it a fudge? Maybe something for now, but there's a reason we did that. And it serves kind of another purpose. It kind of allows us to gather more data from users So using the correct tools such as Google Analytics and Hotjar, about where people actually find that content, so we can measure in the future, do people take the journey through courses and events mostly, or do they actually go to guidance and standards, or do they come via About Us? And that might help us in the future to make to make a decision, to iterate that navigation issue, perhaps relocate communities of practice and rethink maybe how we're presenting that as part of our website. So I will move on now as well to talk about another thing, which is building bilingual services. So obviously in Wales, we build all our services bilingually, and we have made sure that we've tested with Welsh language users and also iterated our content during kind of alpha and beta bilingually as well. So we need to treat both languages equally from the start of our project, and we were testing, designing and iterating content bilingually, not just kind of doing what perhaps traditionally might have been done, is just adding the Welsh shortly before we go live because it's just been translated. So was this process plain sailing? Well, even though kind of we wanted to do the right thing, it did feel challenging, but I think it has been kind of rewarding, and it has actually given us better results. So, I think it was, we could say that it was challenging to recruit participants to test our content in Welsh. Was it iterating a content bilingually can take extra time to do. I'm a bilingual content designer and I can do that, but obviously that does take a little bit more time. But I think it is worth it because we can be more confident that it's working when we test with different users, and it is, in the long run, it's going to be less costly and time consuming for us and for the users. And it allows us to make sure that the Welsh is usable in Welsh as well as the English. Was that perhaps the best way of doing it, using myself as a bilingual content designer? I think it definitely did work, but there is a different way potentially that we could try in the future. We could potentially bring in a translator into the project and try to do some trio writing process that might give more plurality and take pressure off a content designer to do that. So that will let me segue nicely into talking quickly about trio writing as something that we're working on in CDPS at the moment as a way of improving how we design bilingual content. So a trio writing session might be a session that involves a content designer, a translator, and either a user researcher or a subject matter expert. So if you'd like to know more about that kind of trio writing process, I think Poppy now has shared a link in the chat to a blog post that we've published about that. And we'll also be publishing a lot more about that process very soon. So keep your eyes peeled about that. I'm going to hand over now to Charlotte.
Cool. Thanks, Ashen. So yeah, I'm Charlotte Dewey, and I'm a comms officer here at CDPS, and I've also been the acting as a product manager on the website project. So yeah, another digital service standard which the website followed is providing a joined-up experience, which means that a service we deliver needs to work seamlessly for the user so they have a consistent experience. One way of providing a joined-up experience is working with other organisations. We worked closely with the Welsh Government GEL team to align to their digital design standards. So what is GEL? GEL stands for Global Experience Language. Lots of organisations have them, including the BBC and the Civil Service. They are a series of design standards that have to be implemented when designing a digital product or service, and they help ensure that the product or service is accessible, meets user needs, and has consistency. The reason we follow the Welsh Government GEL design standards is because we're an arm's length body of Welsh Government, and our website sits on a gov.wales domain. So yeah, as we have a gov.wales domain, we identify as a gov.wales microsite. After the discovery we did, we began working with the GEL team to show them our design proposals and wireframes. We also updated them on our user feedback from conducting user research. This allowed us to discuss with which GEL design standards could meet those user needs, but also to discuss if any user needs were identified during our research that the GEL team needed to take away to extend or create new design patterns for. We then worked with Hoffy, who built our website, along with Josh, our visual designer, to make sure that these standards were met. And using the design standards GEL already provided helps to avoid doing the work that's already been done and avoiding any solutions that have been discarded. And it builds on the research and experience of teams across gov.wales who might have done similar work before. So when working within GEL, you get a toolkit, which includes guidance on the Welsh Government branding, fonts and headings, links, buttons, forms, colours, filters, navigation, and lots more. Then before launch, GEL carried out a QA spot check report, which looked out for any issues with the designs, accessibility, colours, or any issues with the content. We were then given a list of these issues to work on before we launched into public beta, which were carried out by the website team. Then once the GEL team were happy with those fixes, we went ahead and launched our public beta version of the website. And yeah, I'll pass now to Josh, our visual designer, to talk more about how we considered accessibility.
Dear Charlotte, Josh Dewey. I am the visual designer here at CDPS, and I'm going to be talking about one of the other criteria that we adhere to, which is making sure everybody can use the service. So during the process, we identified things that we could do internally within our own staff skill sets, and that included things like testing color contrast to accommodate visual impairments, using tools such as sim daltonism to assess how it looks like for various types of color blindness, and making sure we have governance around things like descriptive alt text for images. Furthermore, both Hoffy and the GEL team offered insight and expertise in how to work towards a good baseline of accessibility. However, we knew that we needed to do more and test with people who had lived experience and utilize assistive technology. We worked with an external digital accessibility organisation to assess the new website, after which they supplied a very thorough audit and a series of recommendations. Once we've addressed these items, we'll be undergoing live testing with them and their participants who use assistive technology or have varied accessibility requirements. So these are things that are currently in process. We've got the audit done, and we're currently working with Hoffy to address those before we go on to the user testing from the externals. So as part of this, it's just not enough to test, launch, and then sit back and relax after a job well done. As Oshan mentioned earlier, iteration is key, and real-life usage data helps identify issues and trends and so forth. That means we can keep working on improving. The ethics, privacy, and security of that kind of tracking is baked into the project from the outset. Some of the tools that we use for tracking stats and user behavior is Google Analytics, Hotjar, and our CRM HubSpot. As you may know, Google Analytics is used for tracking page views, search terms, referral links, conversions, and I'll talk a bit more on that later. Hotjar, however, is a tool that allows us to see user activity on individual pages. That includes clicks, scrolls, movements, and so forth. This is across all types of devices as well. It also builds heat maps, which is invaluable for us internally, being able to see pain points or user confusion accurately. We're not just relying on, stats of someone left the page after a few minutes. We can actually see what they're doing. Finally, HubSpot is our CRM, which is hooked up to our website forms to capture things like event signups and newsletter subscriptions. But we wanted to make sure that not only are we gathering and storing data ethically, we also wanted to ensure that these were all GDPR compliant. Data storage was in the UK or at the very least the EU. The users were not tracked beyond our website. So besides signups and newsletter subscriptions, we only want data on how people use our website, not their personal information or activity elsewhere. So how do we do that? Well, as part of the privacy and security side of things, we made sure that both Hotjar and Google Analytics were not capturing any personal identifiable information or PIDs. Everything including names, emails, job titles, and so forth are totally obfuscated. There is no way for us to get that from Hotjar or Google Analytics. As you can see on this screenshot from Hotjar, everything that's in a field gets scrubbed. We just want the bare minimum of device data. So that's things like whether they're on a mobile or a desktop, what browser they're using, and what country they're in. So locations are limited to countries, and each user is assigned a random ID so that we can track repeated use of the site, but we cannot gather or assign personal data to them. However, the CRM is designed to collect personal data, but on the website, that's only gathered through when someone signs up or subscribes via a form. We did a lot of due diligence before selecting HubSpot because we knew it was going to be working in this way with the website. So we worked with our delivery partner for that to ensure that increased security credentials were obtained. And internally, the whole of CDPS has undergone cybersecurity training to ensure user data is protected. So we've got the technology, but how do we make sure that it's scalable? Website-based tools are used to measure success and identify issues in a secure and ethical way. But another important criteria is to make sure technology scales with our needs. So within each of the different pieces of software that either interact with the site, so our data gathering or the website itself, are all highly scalable. This helped us to avoid the issue of, a year or two from now, this tool is no longer useful, and then we have to go back and, redo all of this work. So things like Hotjar allows us to later on add feedback or surveys. So this will actually be built into the feedback mechanisms of the website. Again, all anonymized. Google Analytics, of course, has just changed to Google Analytics 4 from Universal Analytics. And that allows us to focus a lot more on things like conversions so that we can accurately track how our events and so forth are doing. Furthermore, the CRM has a lot of capability for automation. And so once we assign a product manager post-launch of the website, part of their work will be seeing what kind of automation we need to do in terms of people signing up from the website or registering, what kind of information they then get, and what's put into an automated workflow. The content management system, the thing that the website is built on, is also pretty scalable. There's of course lots of plugins, first and third party ones, that allow us to really have a good footing from the get-go to be able to expand as we need to. I'm going to hand over to tell us what's next.
Thank you, Josh. Great stuff. So, what's next? Well, what's going on now is that our public beta is now live, which we're super excited about. We are actively gathering feedback via the website on a survey that is live on the website. So I am going to just share a link on the chat, and for those of you joining us externally today, if you haven't already taken a look at the beta site, please do have a play about with it, and we're really keen to hear your thoughts directly. So do fill out our website survey, or feel free to contact myself directly via email if you'd like to do it that way. We are now moving on to, as Josh was mentioning, analysing the accessibility audit report we've had back. We're starting to take a look at that website survey feedback now, and starting to listen to our internal staff again about their needs in relation to the site. Our organisation is a growing one, and so the needs of the organisation in terms of the website are developing and sort of ever-changing. So we are in the process of prioritising iterations and fixes ahead of going officially live with our website, which we will do a bit of a launch around, and we will then wind down the sort of current or old site, as it were, and deactivate that. As Josh mentioned, we're sort of in the process of discussing governance around the website. So we're looking at rolling out training now for staff on content editing, and using our new CMS system, and using the editing tools for the website. I think we mentioned there, we've sort of changed over from WordPress to Drupal, so we'll need to do a bit of upskilling on those systems. We are, as Josh mentioned, looking to create some new roles to support the website. So thinking there about a project manager specifically for the website. And we are looking to follow up with the Digital Accessibility Centre to get some user testing in, specifically with real life users who have additional sort of accessibility needs and requirements. We're really excited about that because they're going to give us an opportunity to sit in on some of those tests as well. So in particular, our user researchers and our sort of user-centered design team are going to get a chance to get a bit of an insight into how those types of tests are facilitated and conducted. We're still working closely with GEL just to ensure that any iterations that we are making are GEL compliant, and we are also looking to schedule a bit of a sort of retro with GEL to feedback on our experience using their toolkit. So again, just working closely to learn from each other there. And yes, we're just continuing to work on this. We're just really excited to launch this officially, get this up and running live. We're going to have a consistent feedback window open on this when the website does go live. So we'll have a website survey available on the website moving forward, where we'll just continually check in with our users and just make sure that we're offering the best service via the website. I am going to move on now to our sort of open part of the session, really, where we just ask you, do you have any questions for us in relation to our project, in relation to anything you've heard today in terms of the steps we've taken in building the site? We would love to hear anything. So feel free to utilize the chat or the hand up function, or simply unmute yourself and just give us a shout out if you have any questions. Looking quiet out there. It's that time of day. We are conscious it's sort of end of day now, so yeah, I'm sure a few of us are getting that end of day feeling. The feedback window, as I said, is always open, so if you can't think of anything right now that you have to ask us but you'd like to get in touch, do feel free to email myself directly. The invite for today's meeting has come out directly from myself. We are also contactable via the website. We have our details on there, or feel free to populate our website survey. I think if that's nothing else, and last chance for any takers on any questions, I'll give another minute just in case anybody does think of anything. Otherwise, we will wrap up there. Oh, I have a hand up. Fantastic. From Simon.
You know, I'll always trust me with a question. Go on. Have you got an idea of how you're defining when beta live is good enough to switch off the old to migrate to live? What criteria setting or what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing there is that from the get-go, when we kicked off the project, you know, we had an initial sort of project goal, essentially. We had a minimal viable project sort of agreed. So we've been working off that basis. We're feeling like we're getting to the point now where that is good to go in terms of, you know, it's a functional site that can be developed upon and built upon. So, you know, we are aiming for the end of July, start of August for our sort of live launch of the site, whereby we'll be then wrapping up sort of the public beta version of the site and wrapping up the older site then. But I think, yeah, you know, in terms of knowing when we've sort of achieved our goal, you know, again, it's just important to have a project goal at the start, really, and an agreed MVP at the start, which we did do.
Thanks.
James.
And just to add to that, you had some mandatory bits, didn't you, Poppy? And what one was passing gel, which got the green tick, and the other was the digital accessibility, which nearly passed. So once that's done, I think you will be ready for go live. Yeah.
And thanks, Julie, for your comment there in the chat. Glad you found this helpful. Thanks, Gabby, for your comment as well. And if there's no other takers on any questions or no other comments, we're running well ahead of schedule. So I did promise not to take too much of your time up this afternoon. I think we'll wrap it up there. But as I said, do get in touch if you have any follow-up questions or if we can be of any help. And do check out the website and have a play about with it. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr.
Bye-bye.